Let me show you something. The number one reason why a lot of people are waking up to the truth of flat Earth is the Nikon Coolpix P1000. This camera is the most powerful zoom in the world.
Did you know that NASA actually paid Nikon to stop selling the Nikon P1000 camera just before the total solar eclipse of April of 2024?
If you ask me, if I was Nikon, I would discontinue it too. And you're asking why?
Now, do you have any idea as to why they would buy a company off and tell them to stop selling a particular camera just before an eclipse?
The reason why this camera is being discontinued is because they do not want normal people going out there like me, who can go out there and zoom in on miles and miles and miles and see absolutely zero curvature.
Like zooming in to so-called planets and seeing what they really look like, or zooming into ships that supposedly went over the curve of the Earth.
Perhaps there was something that NASA didn't want us to see during this eclipse. Perhaps that the moon isn't actually blocking out the sun to cause the eclipse.
They're losing their narrative. They are in trouble and they are losing their grip.
This is the Nikon P1000, perhaps the most famous camera in the entire flat Earth community. This camera acquired its fame through the very long reach it has, sporting a 3,000mm lens, which is beyond the reach that most professional lenses have on the market. Now, flat earthers have used this camera to perform various tests, such as zooming in on faraway objects and even zooming in on the planets and stars in the sky. But unfortunately, these tests they've done have just further proven how they don't understand anything. For example, when they zoom in on these distant boats or lighthouses or mountains, they fail to account for any of the numbers in the equation for the things they're zooming in on, such as their viewer height, the distance of the object, or even the fact that light bends as it passes through the atmosphere, and refraction is a very real thing. And then, of course, they zoom in on the planets, and what they see through the Nikon P1000, they claim is what the object actually looks like, and every single image captured by an amateur telescope is actually fake. When in fact, the object that they're filming through their P1000 is actually just grossly out of focus. Now let's talk about some of the specifications of the P1000. This camera comes equipped with a 16 megapixel sensor, obviously the very long 3000mm lens, and it comes in at a very low price point of just about $950 to $1,000, depending on the condition you're buying this in. Now, obviously, with this very low price point comes a considerable amount of trade-offs. Nikon had to take a lot out of this camera in order to get the price point so low. One of the biggest things they sacrificed on being the actual optics themselves. Because in an actual professional lens with a reach like that, you would be paying nearly $5,000 just to get that lens with high quality glass that's going to be sharp no matter how far you zoom in. And unfortunately, the Nikon P1000 is not that. You zoom in an object, there are visible issues with the clarity of the image itself, and the 16 megapixel sensor in the camera doesn't help with that clarity. For example, the camera I'm shooting with right now is the Canon EOS R7, which comes equipped with a 33 megapixel sensor, and when I'm zooming in on faraway objects such as an aircraft or the moon, I usually pair it with a 100 to 500 millimeter lens, which this cost me nearly $3,000, rest in peace my bank account. And the high resolution sensor paired with the very high quality glass in the lens allows me to get very sharp, detailed images of the objects I'm trying to photograph. But unfortunately, flat earthers do not recognize that, and they use their own confirmation bias to make it seem like the Nikon P1000 is the greatest camera to ever exist. But sadly, in the past year, flat earthers have lost their minds due to the loss of their precious camera. Or did they actually lose it? In February of 2024, Nikon made an announcement stating that the Nikon P1000 was officially being discontinued. Flat earthers obviously threw a fit over this, claiming that NASA paid off Nikon to get rid of this camera because it was waking too many people up to the true shape of the Earth. Now, obviously at the time, the common sense answer to why Nikon actually discontinued this camera was just the simple fact that it's old, and the demand for the camera really isn't there. They're not making as much money off the P1000 as they are with their higher model cameras such as the Z6 or the Z9. But of course, flat earthers would not accept that explanation because everything has to be a conspiracy in their eyes. There's no common sense explanation to anything. Everything is a conspiracy. The government is always out to get them. Now, obviously, adding on to the common sense side of everything, this camera wasn't banned or anything. Nikon simply discontinued production. This did not stop flat earthers from going and buying it secondhand or buying the last of the stock that was still available for the new cameras that different camera sales companies had in their warehouses. They could freely go purchase this still, or even borrow a camera from one of their flat earther buddies who did have the P1000. The government didn't come to their doors and snatch their P1000 from them and take it away from them. No, they didn't do any of that. Nikon simply stopped production. But what if I told you that the Nikon P series actually isn't dead? In fact, just last week, Nikon, on February 5th, 2025, officially announced the release of the Nikon P1100. Not a lot about the camera's actually changed, but just the fact that they released a newer model completely destroys the flat earthers' conspiracies. Now, obviously, I haven't seen a single flat earther acknowledge the fact that the P1100 was released. They're still probably going to keep riding on the train that NASA paid Nikon off to ban the P1000. So really, the real reason Nikon got rid of the P1000, not only because of its age, but is because just recently, Europe announced that all electronic devices sold within the EU regions must sport a USB-C port. Apple was not allowed to use their Lightning connector, and any other sort of different type of connector that wasn't being used by the majority of tech companies was banned from the EU. So everything now must be universally equipped with the USB-C connector. And that's what Nikon did with the P1100. They gave it the USB-C connector for charging. Literally nothing else on the camera has really changed. They may have tweaked a couple things on the optics or something. I don't personally own the camera to know. But as far as I know, on the spec sheet, everything is the same. So flat earthers can still freely go purchase the P1000 secondhand, or they can take the next step up and drop a little bit more money to buy the newest model, the P1100. But unfortunately, no matter how new of a camera the flat earthers buy, they will never fully understand photography. Maybe one day they'll actually buy good glass. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any future content I come out with debunking the flat earth claims. Also, let me know down in the comments if you think I should stick with the Nikon P1000 that I already own, or if I should upgrade to the P1100 model just to one-up the flat earthers. And also, be sure to share this video with your friends so they can see how the flat earthers literally make a conspiracy out of every little thing in the book. If you want to see more flat earth content, but the stuff on my YouTube channel just isn't enough, check out my Instagram page linked in the description for more flat earth content because I post things over on Instagram that don't really fit the YouTube format. But that's going to do it for me. I will see you all next time in another flat earth debunk video.